Hello! So 2017 was a really good year for superhero movies. We had Logan, we had Wonder Woman, we had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming. They were all great, but I've not heard anyone talking about the Russian superhero movie, Guardians. Probably ranks among the worst movies I've ever seen. Definitely the worst superhero movie I've ever seen. And I've watched all the DC movies, and like Fantastic Four. So, today I'm going to tell you all about it. The first things first, let me tell you about the Guardians. There's 4 of them, so they just rip off the Fantastic Four. So the Fantastic Four, there is Mr. Fantastic, who is a stretchy man. There's the Invisible Woman, who can turn invisible, but she can also make like force fields and whatever. There is the Thing, who is a man made of rocks. And there is the Human Torch, who is a man who sets on fire and flies and is really fast. So this movie has an invisible woman, a man who can like control rocks, but he's kind of more in the role of stretchy man because his weapon is like just a whip made of rocks. Instead of setting on fire, the speedy man is just fast. So the rock man is kind of a cross between Mr. Fantastic and the Thing. Like he's a stretchy man who controls rocks. But then, the 4th member of the team is just a guy who turns into a bear. He has like 3 stages. He's got just a human body with bear head and full bear. So yeah, those are the members of the team. There's also the villain who is just kind of like a super strong genius man, but he can also like talk to cars. In like the opening scene, he just like takes control of these tanks and makes them murder a bunch of people. It opens up, we have this intro title sequence where it shows everyone getting given their powers by scientists, which kind of raises the question, like, how did they decide on the powers they were going to give them? We need the 4 classic superhero powers: turning invisible, super speed, controlling rocks. What's the other one that most superheroes have? Oh, turning into a bear. So we have the opening title sequence of everyone getting the powers. Then we have a scene where the bad guy takes control of some tanks and they murder some people. Then we get some military people talking and they say the only way to stop this guy is to assemble the Guardians, who are a team of superheroes that the bad guy gave powers to. After the scene, we have a second title card. We got one at the end of the title sequence. They do another title card because they do a really clunky setup. So do you remember in the first Avengers movie when someone says, "Director Fury, what do we do?" And then he kind of like looks away and then it goes, "Avengers." It's answering the question. This movie just does a worse version of that. The scene kind of ends and then the woman walks off and she turns around and goes, "One more thing. What's the name of the team?" And then it says Guardians. So then we have her in just this room of nerds and they're all looking up reports of weird activity to try and work out where the Guardians are. And they just immediately find them all. It's like the first 4 things they find are the 4 Guardians. So then we do something that this movie does a lot, which is just do the same scene 4 times. The woman who's assembling the team has to go and meet the Guardians individually to get them to join. So we just get 4 scenes of her meeting each of the Guardians. The last person they go find is this woman who turns invisible. She's like performing in a circus. We actually get a scene showing us what her circus performance is. She dives into a bunch of water because she can only turn invisible in water. And then she comes out of the water and she's naked, but she's invisible. And then a bunch of confetti falls from the sky, lands like just in exactly the right places she needs to cover up. And then she turns uninvisible and she's got this nice confetti outfit on. It's really lucky how that turned out. So the 3 Guardians who have already been recruited just turn up in her dressing room and then she fights them all. Because for some reason, they all remember everything. She's lost her memory. It doesn't get explained the entire movie why she's lost her memory, but she has. And then the scene just ends and they're back in the headquarters. And then we get the first tragic backstory scene of 4, because we have to have one for each character. I don't remember anything. I've lost my memory. All I've got is this ring that tells me my name. And we also get the exposition that none of the Guardians can age, which explains how they got their powers at the end of World War II and they still look like they're in like their early 30s. So she tells the story of how she's sad that she doesn't age and she has to move around constantly like the vampires in Twilight. Then they work out where the bad guy is and they're all immediately just like, okay, we'll go fight the bad guy then. This is like 15 minutes into the movie. They go fight the bad guy 15 minutes in. So they turn up at the bad guy's base where he is. It's like a military base, I think, but he's just like taking it over with all his henchmen. Oh, all his henchmen, by the way, are clones of him, but they're always wearing balaclavas, so you can't see their faces. So there is no way to confirm that they're clones of him. It's just heavily implied. Like, we see the bad guy in a room full of tanks with human silhouettes in, and he's like, "Oh, my clones are almost ready." But then I think they're still in the tanks later. I don't know if this has anything to do with the movie, or if he just has an unrelated army who always wear masks. So anyway, the Guardians turn up at his base, and they immediately split up. So Invisible Woman just like walks through the entire base because it's raining at the time, so her invisibility and water powers work, which is really lucky. Speedy Man just goes off and like chops up a bunch of henchmen. Rockman finds his way indoors and just covers himself in rocks and starts punching people. And Man Who turns into a bear half turns into a bear, so just his head is a bear and he's got really strong arms and he just starts like punching dudes. But then they all lose. And it's later explained by the bad guy that he's like, "I created you, so I know all your weaknesses." Some of these don't really work as weaknesses. Invisible Woman gets caught because, so she's covered in water, but then they use like heat goggles to spot her. They like break some pipe full of liquid nitrogen or something and she like freezes. Man Who's a bear, they just shoot a net at him and he gets caught in a net. Like, oh, my one weakness. Man Who's incredibly fast. I guess they worked out his weakness is that he's not always fast. So they shoot him with like a syringe of tranquilizer or something. It really doesn't make sense. If he's incredibly fast, he would just dodge that easily. But no, just a random soldier man can shoot him with a syringe. And then Man Who's covered in rocks, his weakness is that the bad guy just like punches him and then picks him up and breaks his back on his knee. My one weakness, having my back broken. So he puts 3 of them in a cage and then leaves the rock man just like in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, "You 3 can join me. We can rule the world." And they're all like, "No, we're okay, thanks. We'd rather die than join." And he's like, "I'll give you 24 hours. Just take a hint, dude. They're not gonna join your lame evil party." The woman who assembled the team turns up, finds that the bad guy has left and he's taken all the cars with him because he can talk to cars. So the woman finds Rockman and takes him back to the good guy headquarters. Everyone else is the bad guy headquarters. And then he gets his tragic backstory bit. And his tragic backstory is that he had a daughter, but she has since died of old age because he doesn't age, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He got turned into a Superman maybe like 1950-ish, so he probably had his daughter after that, which would mean she is like at most in her 60s. It's not been long enough for a person to die of old age. This can't be your tragic backstory. So anyway, his back's broken, but he's gonna be fine. Because later on another scientist turns up and he just heals him because he can do that. So yeah, this other scientist turns up, heals that guy and tells the woman who assembled the team where the bad guy's headquarters is because he just kind of knows that. So she goes and the bad guy's not there, luckily. She just frees the other people and brings them all back to the base. Soon after that we get The Bear Man's tragic backstory. He was in love with the invisible lady, and he's just kind of like been looking out for her, even though she's lost her memory. So kind of stalking her in a way. And he tells the lady that every time he turns into a bear, he becomes kind of less human, and he like loses control of being a bear. He's like, even when I turn back into a human, I still feel like an animal. And then we get the bizarre line from the other lady. She just says, some animals are better than people. Good one, writers of this movie. So yeah, he's worried that he will turn into a bear full time. He'll go full bear. Here's a quote from that scene. Especially when I reach the final state of full bear mode. And a few lines later, I can permanently get stuck as a bear. Please don't let that happen. So the Speedy guy's tragic backstory is that he had an older brother. They used to like practice fighting or something, because his brother was great at kung fu and sword fighting. So they would fight and his brother would always win. So he went and found the bad guy to give him superpowers so that he could beat his brother in a fight. So he gets his superpowers and then he goes back to fight his brother and he just killed him. And that's his tragic backstory. He wanted to beat his brother at fighting, then he got the superpowers that let him do it, and then he just killed him. I mean, he didn't mean to kill him, but he still did it. This man should be in jail, but instead he's on the superhero team. We find out that the bad guy's plan is he takes a really tall tower and he puts it on the back of these trucks, and then he drives it somewhere else and stacks it on top of another really tall tower to make a large enough antennae that he can use all the satellites orbiting the Earth to control every bit of machinery on Earth. And for some reason he's also using this Soviet era satellite that's got like a big laser on it or something. That bit's not really fully explained. He wants to control like every machine on Earth. That's his plan. He's also got a force field around his giant pile of towers that no one can get through unless you have a code thing. A guy's like, here's a code thing, it'll get you through the force field. And as the audience, I'm thinking, right, I need to remember this. Someone's gonna like lose one and won't be able to get through the force field, or they won't have enough and they'll have to like find some. But no, it never comes up again, so it doesn't even matter. When they're discussing how they're gonna like attack the bad guy from the force field, they're like, we'll have to attack from all four sides. The Speedy dude's like, I'll come in a plane and I'll attack from above. And then the invisible lady's like, me and Artis will come from the ground. And then the Rockman's like, I'll come through the subway. And it's like, you just said you needed to attack from four sides. But then two of you are going together, so it's only three sides. It doesn't even matter because they all just like meet up immediately anyway. Man who's a bear goes full bear. He now has guns on his back. Him and the invisible lady fight off a bunch of dudes. Then he gives her a lift. She just like rides on the back of this bear. We get a comedic elevator scene. The Rock Man is in an elevator and the doors open up. And the woman and the bear like get in and they all have to like squidge up against the side because the bear's huge. So they go up in the elevator to where the force field is being generated from, and they meet up with Speedy Man along the way. He just like drops from the sky and they're trying to stop the force field. They find the generator that's like making the force field. We need to short it out. Artis finds some metal. Artis is the bear man. The heat would melt any metal. And the invisible lady is just like, oh, okay then. And she just goes and grabs it and gets electrocuted. And it works. And then she's just fine. So the plan was, once they get the force field down, some army dudes can come in planes and just like shoot the tower with rockets. But they come in and shoot the tower with rockets. And the guy who can like control machines just like shoots the rockets up into the sky. And then he goes, that was your plan? You're really stupid. I didn't mention that the scientist guy who turned up earlier, he was just kind of doing something, and then the bad guy came up and like released a load of gas that knocked him out. The lady who assembled the team went and found him, and he was like, there's something I forgot to tell you. the Guardians can combine their powers to become more powerful. And the lady's like, oh, right, okay, I need to go tell them that. And then she just drives and meets them at the tower. She's like, oh, you guys can combine your powers. And then they're all like, oh, well, I guess we better do that. And then they do, and they make just a big energy ball, and then it explodes the bad guy, and then they win. So they knock the tower over, and the bad guy's like falling, and he's like, no, you can't defeat me. I created you. And then in a voiceover, the woman who created the team goes, no, you're wrong. They created themselves. As if she heard the guy falling. It's just the worst. And then all the Guardians and this woman are on this bridge. They're all just hanging out on a bridge like you do. We get the best line in the entire movie. So they just defeat the bad guy. They're all on a bridge. And the lady who created the team says this: you're all amazing, but it's not your superpowers that make you amazing. You've helped me discover that dignity is achieved through friendship. What does that even mean? I would understand if the theme of the movie was like all of these people like learn to get on. They need to work together as a team. But that's not what happened. They literally just found out about this extra secret power they had, and then they used it and they won. It's not like they had to overcome their differences. They always got on quite well for like the entire film. The last line of the movie is they're all on the bridge still, but everyone else is leaving. And then the woman says, one more thing. And then she looks directly at the camera and she says, we found other Guardians. And then the movie ends. They saw the Marvel Cinematic Universe thing and like how they kind of set up other movies in the movie. And they did it in just the most obvious way. There is no possible way you could miss that they are planning a sequel. Now you would think that they wouldn't get to make a sequel because the first film was so bad. It was kind of a bomb when it came out in Russia. But no, they are making a sequel, being produced in China, and they're introducing some Chinese Guardians in the sequel. We can all look forward to that whenever that's coming out. There's also a mid-credits scene, but it just doesn't make any sense. So there's like a shipping yard. We've got all these shipping containers, and a black van drives up. Two dudes get out of the van and they walk around the back. They open up the back doors, and like the blonde woman who assembled the team jumps out and just like beats them up because I guess they like kidnapped her in the van. And then she's like, "Who sent you? I need a name." And the guy's like, "Ferrum." And then the credits continue. I'm guessing that the enemy in the sequel is just a rip-off of Magneto then, if his name is Ferrum. Oh, I'd even mention, the guy who gives all the exposition at the start and tells the blonde lady to assemble a team was secretly working for the bad guy. Like, we get the scene of him telling them to assemble a team. They assemble the team. Then we get another scene of this guy going to meet the bad guy. And he's like, "I did what you said. I assembled the Guardian." The bad guy just like chokes him out and he dies. Oh, there's a scene where they give them all like super suits. When they're given the guy with rocks his super suit, this is the line they say. "In your last fight, your skills were neutralized because you didn't have any access to rocks. With this suit, you'll have access to rocks at any time," because the suit is just like covered in rocks. Maybe I should start putting like mid-credit scenes at the end of my videos. I need some credits first. This is the My Cup of Tea cinematic universe. I need to like set up future videos. If you've got Amazon Prime in the UK, I don't know if it's on in the US, do yourself a favour and watch this movie. It's 89 minutes long. It takes no time at all, and you get to laugh at it the entire time because it's so bad. Like the edit is just the worst part. A woman like walks into the room to tell someone something, and they get halfway through the sentence and then music starts playing really loudly and you don't hear the end of it, and then it just cuts to another scene. I've kind of been through all my notes now, so I don't really know what else to say. This is going to be really fun to edit together. It's 42 minutes long. If you've seen the movie, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't, I really recommend it. This movie is like a 2 out of 10. Go watch it and come let me know. Alternatively, if you know any other great bad movies, I'd love to hear them. I do always talk about superhero movies, but at least this one wasn't a Marvel or DC movie. See you next time, where I might talk about a good film. Bye bye.